Serene and
Archery Summit.
work our way along the bridge there.
Is that the road trip that took you 2 days to complete?
Yeah.
They have really.
that's the one.
All right, let's call to order the Emden County Board of Commissioners informal work session today, February 13, 2018. And let's start with John Phelan, who's going to give us a look at the roads in the county and give us a MIP look at the MIP list.
Thank you, Commissioner. What we did is that we did this last year too. It's pretty bad when we have to have legal in here when we're giving a presentation.
Well, we gotta keep you in mind, John.
Well, some of those English can make that happen, but that's okay. What we did is that we compiled a list of about 25 roads. Now, I think you guys have seen this. This is about, yeah, and what we did is, and Griffin will explain this a little further through his selection and whatnot, so I won't take up a lot of time of your time, but out of the roads that Roy and I and Griffin compiled, then we took them to RIAC. The commissioner was there. We went through the roads and actually rated them, and I'll let Griffin explain that. So why don't you go ahead and take it away if there's no questions.
So we started with an initial list of 24 roads that we knew were in need of repair, either new asphalt or an overlay. We took those to RIAC and actually held a vote that was to be one set of criteria in trying to narrow this list down from 24 to a little
You know,
bit.
Griffin, let me in out, and I'll do it all the way through here. You know, when can you go back to that map without messing your program up? What we try to do, commissioners, and Commissioner Olson is probably you being new, is we do try to, we have the county in 4 quadrants. That's kind of how we base our, not kind of, that's how we base our grading too. What we try to do when we look at it is not focus a lot in one area just for, and we try to spread these projects around so everybody in the county sees a little bit of the improvement coming along. So you can see it's really well diverse as far as the areas that we're covering.
So we took this list of 24 to RIAC to vote to kind of gauge the level of interest and use that as one piece of the overall criteria here in narrowing this list down. So we did vote on all of the roads using a 1 through 5 scale, 1 being least interest and 5 being most interested. So we factored all those votes together and kind of came up with some points to award each road based on based on the level of interest from the RIAC folks.
Griffin, what's EOP?
End of pavement. So from there, we decided on seven separate items to use in the scores to narrow the list down. And that would be cracking of the road, looking at the rutting, any observed base failure that we saw on the road, ADT, which is the average daily traffic, road classification, generally the overall kind of big picture condition of the road, and then obviously one of the criteria was the RIAC votes.
And you'll hear people say PCI a lot, that's pavement index conditioning, and a lot of counties use that is the criteria they use.
It's essentially the same.
Before I came here, we actually had 2 guys that did this year round. They went out and did pavement index conditioning, and it works so well. So now what we do is Roy, Griffin, and I, we get a list of the roads, and then we go around and do the PCI. So we do it at the management level, not at the support level.
John, you look at, is there an occasion where you'll look at a road that didn't make the RIAC list? I mean, that's on the list, but RIAC for some reason didn't vote it.
Well, I think that's what we're doing here, Laura, is the commissioners, that's why I handed this actually out last week, is just so they had some time to look at it. So I mean, if there is a road, we're not set in stone in any of these, although we'll be able to go out tomorrow, but don't worry about that.
I'm just wondering if you at the staff level ever do that. If for some reason RIAC doesn't rate a road that you think needs to be done, will you put it on the list?
Oh, we
as well?
do, but usually at the meeting level right there, I'll bring
You'll
up my
address it there.
concerns, and they usually are, swayed enough to go
Okay.
my direction.
And you'll see on the total scores, we didn't follow it exactly down. There were some decisions made based on factors that are outside of those 7 separate criteria. You know, if it's a road that's got brand new asphalt on each end and it's kind of the last piece of the puzzle, that does account for something.
Okay, thank you.
So this is just kind of, I know it's a lot to look at here, but this is kind of the overall how we scored everything and kind of what we classify as good to fair, and so on and so forth on the criteria here. So if you guys want to look at it, it's a lot to kind of look at. If you want to look at it, or if you'd like me to move forward.
Well, I think the point is we just don't pick these helter-skelter. We actually do some research on the road. We actually do a core test when we're concerned about something.
Anybody have any questions on this particular slide here? So here's the list of all the roads and their total scores. You'll notice on the far right column, the ones marked were the roads that were selected. So you see it doesn't quite follow exactly the numerical value. The ones at the bottom that you see, they're gravel roads, so the 2 columns for cracking and rutting don't apply to those. That's why they have an artificially low score. But as you can see, they're in pretty rough condition.
Griffin, maybe John or one of you can answer this question. You talk, 2 of the criteria we use is the ADT, the traffic counts, and we also use a type of road, such as whether it be a collector or whatever it is. When you look at these roads, do you weight those in and say, well, maybe today it's something like a minor collector, but we know based on where population growth is occurring, what's happening in the rural areas, that 5 years or 3 years from now, that may not be it may carry twice the ADT that it's carrying now.
Yeah, realistically, Commissioner, with our TSP that we just finished 2 years ago, I guess it was, should have accommodated that growth. And we did at the time we did the TSP, and that's a traffic system plan. Re-rate the roads and change several, not several, probably a dozen of them as far as due to either subdivision coming in or businesses starting up, or resources roads, or we didn't change any, I don't think, to arterial, but we moved quite a few of them from a local to an arterial, or not to an arterial collector, and then to a resource road.
So does the TSP, when you look at all these roads, I think it's someplace in this whole scenario, you look at the TSP and what the TSP says that road's gonna be rated at, or has been and is now, and you build that somehow into this scenario?
And that is, we look at the classification of the road. I had a gentleman call me last week, and it's typical government, frankly, is that I don't know how many public meetings we had, but I don't think we had a dozen people show up to maybe 3 of them. And they don't realize how, if they want their road changed and they want some improvements to that road, that those meetings were a necessity to them. They needed to start at that time and come to us and say, this doesn't need a local road, it should be a resource road, because we have a lot of logging on it, or something, a lot of farming or something of that nature. So it is kind of a shame that we don't get a lot more participation. I think we do a TSP about once every 8 to 10 years. So they'll have their chance going down the road to comment on it.
Thanks, John.
So from that list, here's just kind of the breakdown of the roads that were chosen and their scores. 2 of the roads were selected as advent alternates. We'll decide after bid time if we want to complete.
Meadow Lake Road on the first one, This just says Middle Lake Road, but it doesn't say, is it from like West Hills,
From Carlton.
West Side Road?
If you look at, and we'll go through each individual
Oh,
road here,
that's fine.
and, yeah, we'll
It
discuss
actually
that.
starts at Carlton, maybe goes to Carlton. so
This
that's-
is West Side Road, yep. So, with that, that kind of gives an overview of our method of selection, and we've got the drive-through for the roads. And we'll kind of play the video here, and Roy and I will go back and forth, and we'll just kind of give you guys the general overview of the road, how long it is, the limits, width, things like that.
You're supposed to fasten your seatbelt. Put your drinks down.
That's right.
Pretend we're
Keep your arms inside the vehicle at all times.
Did you learn a lot of that this last week?
I did. You betcha.
So, and part of the choppy video was communicating here, there's a little bit of choppy video. So, for the first road, Meadow Lake Road, Carlton city limits to West Side Road. It's about 9/10 of a mile. This road is a minor arterial with an ADT of about 3884. The width varies, and this is from West Side going towards town. The width varies anywhere from 21 feet to 30 feet as you get, it widens up quite a bit there towards town. We did observe some pretty severe rutting on this road, moderate to low base failure, but moderate to severe cracking, as you can, kind of a little bit difficult to tell in the videos of the cracking.
Actually, they did it right at the perfect time, and it's wet, and it's
Yeah.
will highlight those cracks over
Right.
there. We got some in here with snow, so.
There's some frost and some fog, unfortunately. This does have the highest ADT of the MIP roads.
Now, the people at Ryak were complaining, they thought that our road went all the way into Carlton, but I think that most of us know that it stops just past that bridge. And,
Are we on this side or the other side of the bridge, John?
yeah, that's a good question.
Depends on what side of the bridge you're standing on.
Well, when we built the bridge is only about 10 years old now. We paved all the way, we did an approach on each side. But I'm not sure it doesn't end right at the bridge.
That's where I thought it ended, that's why I was wondering.
Top of the hill.
Cunningham almost?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Top of the hill right there. You'll see it.
Now, this was on our list about 2 years ago, if I think that, if you remember. See that cut that's right there on the right-hand side? That's the city of Carlton put in a new water line, so we pulled it off the list at the last minute as per their request, so they could get the real water line in. So Roy, you're thinking that it ends up here at
I'll show
Canyon?
you, yeah.
Oh, so it goes all the way to that first street there?
Yeah.
Just about, yeah.
Oh, okay.
You'll see the difference.
I thought it stopped at the bridge.
It gets worse after hours. There you go.
Yeah, about right there.
Okay.
All right, let's go to the next one.
And that last road's got a lot of heavy traffic on it, the logging trucks, and it's rutted. I mean, when it rains, they're driving in two-wheel tracks in one lane, you know. As far
It's
as
been on Roy's list for about 10 years now. I keep saying, no, what's that? That's the only reason he's saying that.
Should have been done 10 years ago, by God.
Well, we did the intersection about 10 years ago down there, that's for sure. South Hill Road, anybody know where South Hill Road is?
Oh,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Every morning.
Well, lengthly, it's about 1 mile and 6/10 there. It is a major collector.
Yeah, there's a lot of traffic on that road.
There is, as far as the ADT. Oh, man, right here.
About 3,000.
Yeah, it is. Right. Yeah, a little over 3,000, yeah. It varies, you know, between 37 and 25, that first piece down there, from West Second down to Redmond.
It's gonna increase once
gonna
they
get worse.
finish North Hill Road. That thing's gonna become a real hoop around the
Thorough
city.
fair, huh?
Yeah, it will.
That's for sure.
When you get up here,
And I can fast forward.
no,
and,
that's all
okay.
right, that's all right. Just, between Pemberley Loop and Second Street, there's a couple of really significant
Potholes,
that
yeah.
need to be done.
Is it within 500 feet of a commissioner's house?
Yeah,
We don't do it.
exactly.
We don't do what's within 500 feet of a commissioner's house.
Exactly.
Or 1,000.
Or 1,000 feet. Yeah.
Now, our proposal on this is to widen the road and to put a 2-foot bike lane on, pedestrian on each side. So that would close the loop all the way, you know, obviously the city on North Hill is building bike path a lot
Right.
bigger than this would be. I think theirs is 6 feet.
Yeah, there's significant.
But it'd give a nice pedestrian and bicycle path down the hill road down to Peavine and then back up Old Sheridan. And then the city, as you know, is doing Old Sheridan again, so it'd make a nice route. We want to stop right up in here at the corner.
And it does have good adequate shoulders right now.
Yeah.
That'll help with that widening.
Now, the corner here is not, this, I mean, we all know where this is. This is where the gentleman went off of at 80 miles an hour, went through the house.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I think we have a tort claim, don't we?
Yeah.
Kristen, on that?
We sure do.
Yeah, we do.
And the city. The city, and they sued the county and the city.
You know, we looked at this as far as straightening the corner out, and there will be frankly some criticism, and it'll be brought to your desk. I'm almost assured, is why are you doing this and not doing the straightening of that roadway out? Price tag that we came up with, just a basic straighten that out, is $700,000 by the time, and that's not counting acquiring the land, that's just the cost of reconstruction and a new bridge in there.
Would there also be, John, on that, not just at 760,000, since that swale runs down underneath there? It seems like there'd be environmental issues you'd have to deal with. And
It would postpone the project for at least 2 years by the time we went through the
This has
process.
the EIS. That's-
My proposal is not to do that to here, but what I would like to do is that by their own rules, the Corps of Engineers will allow us to add onto that bridge a certain percentage without going through all these hoops and all these permitting. So we figure that we can add 4 feet width to the bridge, which is substantial. I mean, that's not, it's pretty narrow, but what I'd like to do is add 4 feet to the bridge and then raise the whole bridge up 8 inches and then pave. This will be roughly, it'll be a wedge actually, so you'll be going from 8-inch to probably a 4-inch overlay out here. But we are, what we would like to do is, I don't know if you all have seen the bridge that we put across Cosine Creek down there at Old Sheridan, the arch bridge that goes alongside that we attached. We're working with the city that when they take that road over, which shouldn't be in too long a period, we haven't got an answer back from the city yet. We would move that out here and put it on one side, and then I'd go out to bid and buy another one of those bridges and put it on the other side, so there'd be 2.
The bike path would continue.
It would go right over the top of it. You know, the rationale for us to just do this, I think, is just cost. I mean, it's very low cost, frankly, for us to do the overlay, to do the $700,000 to $1 million project, as you know, that takes up half our budget. So,
Yeah.
And
That's in addition to what's already planned for this.
correct.
Right.
And then if that still would not meet the criteria of the city anyway, so what they would do if they had in their UGB in 5 years or 10 years, whenever they take this over for development, they'd have to tear it down and do their specifications. I mean,
Yeah, well, a county road and a city street are totally different.
correct.
As
Yeah,
required.
they require a lot more asphalt, a lot more base than what we would. So that's our plan here, is to widen the bridge 4 feet, add 2 walking bridges on both sides of it, raise it up going into the corner. That should stop. We actually have a lot of water here at high water times that will actually blocks the road. So it wouldn't alleviate 100% of that, but it'd alleviate 50% of the flooding of the road.
Is that included in the cost on the sheet? That's nothing.
Yeah, we can do the whole road for what that bridge would cost. Now, right here, you can see there is a bike path of whatever, someone started one, but right there it starts. And it does go in, but I would propose to put 2 feet on this side and 2 feet on that side. And it's narrow, but it gives a person you get them out of the traffic.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just yell at me to skip ahead.
There goes the commissioner.
No, not yet.
What time was that film?
There it is, right there. That's my house.
He's just going to work.
It was 10:30.
Right down, right up here. we come-
Those are a couple good sized potholes.
Yeah.
There's a few,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's, I dodged them right in there. Yeah, they're pretty nasty. I've seen some cars hit those things.
Yeah, the problem is right now, the weather has just been phenomenal, as you know, but we're still using coal mix.
I know.
And what happens is you put that coal mix in there and it only lasts for about 4 or 5 months and then it comes back out again, so.
I just thought if we just put something in there until we get to the paving, just to.
Doesn't bother me, I don't come that way.
Yeah. Doesn't bother me either,
Very
because I dodge them,
soft.
but some people don't know they're there.
So we'll switch gears to Muddy Valley Road. This is actually the longest. This might take just a second for the video to start here. This is
Where are we starting?
So this is going to be going from
Masonville.
Masonville all the way out to Highway 18.
Oh,
That's a lot.
But just a touch over 4 miles long.
right.
This is the frost.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and silences are silences.
My foster kid lives in.
So average width of about 21 feet, ADT of 461, 5,600 tons. The current condition of the road is poor to fair. There's a lot of uneven surface out here, a lot of areas that are sunken down, and numerous potholes as well. Moderate to severe cracking, some moderate amount of base failure, and some significant running as well. As you can see, even with the fair quality of the video, that there's some significant.
See, actually, I think the video highlights
It
that.
actually does kind
This
of.
one,
I don't think it's that bad. When you watch the video, it's like, oh my God, third world nation out there.
That's an old oil mat road. In about 95, we put a chip seal on it. And then I think it's in late, probably 2006, we put another chip seal on it to save it, because it's cracking so bad. And it goes all the way up there to Gross and Son Shop, and you'll see it on the way. But it's uneven, it's cracked, the bridge approaches are bumpy on the doggone thing. It's got 2 bridges on it. But the elk run across right there, back and forth.
A couple spots along
Yeah,
here. There.
couple spots, that's right.
Yeah, you might want to hurry this one up.
Yeah.
But it needs it, we'll get to a wider spot too.
Fast forward here. Just to give you guys kind of a general.
Well, it looks like Stan's driving now.
What say, Wheels?
There he goes.
Yeah. Hang on.
There's a winery right up here that they're putting in a fence, and it should be right above you here.
Mesa.
That's Sarah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
God, what a beautiful. Right,
Wall and fence.
The wall, yeah, it's more of a wall.
Yeah.
that's actually in an HCP area. So we had some issues when we went out there, but we worked it with them, and they pretty much did what we asked them to do. They're on their property, not on the right of way, but the HCP starts right at their fence. Oh, there's sun got on
Yeah, there it is right there. So, yeah, just a.
it. He did a beautiful job.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
With the brick column.
Now it's going back up to the winery, there's probably a whole bunch more.
Yeah. It's a nice fence.
That's the steepest winery I've ever seen. How they ever get up to those vineyards or the vines, I have no idea.
When you get all the way
All
up the top of the hill up
biodynamic.
there.
All right, let's go ahead.
He's got the neatest home site up on top of the hill on the
Oh,
other side
yeah.
of the winery. Oh, man, he took me up there just to go out there one day to show me. Someday.
Now, he's an immigrant, isn't he? He came
He's from Iran.
From Iran, kids, yeah.
Persia is what they.
18 here.
There we go. Lawrence Gallery, here we come.
Put the hole in the side of the building.
That's a long one.
That is the longest road.
Maybe the commissioner ran in the side of that building.
That's the skid marks.
Where are you guys?
Put a good sized hole in that concrete building.
Warden Hill, now Griffin talked about a road that was paved at one end and paved at the other, and in the middle it wasn't. And this is one of those roads that's in the middle. There's Crabtree Park right there on Warden Hill. We got a lot of cracking, lot of rutting on this road. It's it's just about 1 mile. It's 9.955. It's a major collector. ADT 643 in 2008. But it just needs to be done.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, this is another one where the moisture really highlights the cracking.
Well, how much in Warden Hill did we do? We just did a couple years ago, 3 years ago.
It was showing your age, we did it.
Yeah, it was 3 years ago,
Was it?
wasn't it?
Oh, I was gonna say 5. How long have you been commissioner? You were that liaison there for me, weren't you?
Yeah, your first year.
So,
Yeah, well, it was that 6-month time,
And
yeah,
that's
so it was
just-
just before I came on board.
Mhm.
At that time, they paved it just past Fairview all the way down to
All the way forward
240.
to 240.
Yeah, and that was gravel paved. There was a little bit of overlay on it, but it's time, we did the other one. Commissioner Lewis was here, we did the one from Dundee up to Crabtree Park, so that was been 4, 5, 6 years then, I guess. Would you have any questions? If not, we'll speed through some of these. We don't want to burn all of our time. They did a big logging project right across the road there, and it had havoc on the road too.
Side there.
Whose was that?
I'm not sure, Commissioner, it was, I don't know, what, 20 acres they logged off of that?
About that on the left-hand side.
So we'll move on to the next road.
You were talking about bypasses around McMinnville, the Hill Road being done and whatnot.
Donnelly's gonna get a lot. It gets a lot now.
Yeah.
So Donnelly Lane from Hill Road to West Side Road. So this one's about 1.5 miles long. We are going, it's very narrow in particular on this end, which is the hill end. So we are going to do a little widening there to get some extra room and shoot for a 22-foot finished road width. Varies right now about 20, sometimes you get 21. There's even spots where it's
You
down.
gonna do anything with the curve?
Mhm.
Straighten that out a little.
We are.
Yeah, we're not gonna try to buy property or realign it, but we're gonna rob from Peter and pave and straighten it out just a little bit.
Yeah, we think we can do with a minimal amount of work. We can
That's
shift
what I
that
do
thing.
now when I'm driving it.
Everybody does.
Yeah, so might as well just.
ADT.
That gets a lot of traffic out there.
It does. ADT of actually 574, which is more than I would have guessed. Current condition is poor to fair, some moderate to severe cracking that you can see here. Not a ton of rutting, but a moderate amount of base failure as well. The cracking increases significantly towards the east end of the project.
You're coming up, Commissioner, to the S curve right now.
Right.
I think Bernard's Lane, that little less curve, but right there, Bernard's Lane, it takes off.
Yeah.
babysitter was killed right there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh gosh, that was 17, 18 years ago.
Bunch of trees that didn't
Rollover?
Yeah.
Was it a rollover?
Caught fire
Yeah.
and she was trapped underneath it.
Under the car.
See, what we would do is just widen one side and then try to straighten it out, but it's not gonna be perfect. A
You
lot of
just-
it-
Go a little on the
Yeah.
south side.
We've got a little room over
A
here.
little room there and a little room on the left, so.
You know, we might try talking, I would imagine there's PG&E out there somewhere.
Yeah.
No, it's Mac.
Is it?
The overhead.
Is that Mac out there?
I think it is, isn't it?
Up the hill road and it goes up to, oh, I don't know, my brother-in-law's place, they're PGE, so they're at the end of Bernard's Lane, they're PGE.
Where I think it is.
Norm, or,
Yeah, Manny,
It's
that was
his
on
name,
there.
they're PGE.
But we might,
get them to move that.
well, we'll talk to them and see what the issue, they might be right on the right of way and they'd have to go through acquisition of some more land and so on and so forth, but we'll straighten it out the best we can when we get there.
Okay. That'd be nice if you could take that little jog out of there, sure.
But you know, something to be said about those little jogs, and you get questions on Hill Road, is it actually calms traffic down. If
Sure
you
it
may
is,
go-
that's that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy with the house that was in his front yard, came in through the backyard, yeah.
But, you know, if you're familiar with it, it
Yeah.
does. I mean, you can't go anymore, so it slows you down, but, you know, some people would argue, but if you straighten Hill Road out, you'd have 60-mile-an-hour traffic coming down that road.
We do now,
I mean, you do now, but it may be more prevalent.
but I've been holding it down to 55.
You go the opposite way there and hit North Hill Road and go up the hill a little bit and come down towards Baker Creek and they're coming down that hill faster than
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I
Well,
had-
that's where it used to change to 45, and people were at about 55 by the time they hit that
Oh, yeah,
stretch.
just let it go.
Yeah,
Why don't we go ahead and go through this?
Okay.
there we go.
Mountain Home. Up off of Bell Road over there in the Newburgh area.
Oh, okay.
Goes in the Waco.
Here a few years ago, we paved the rock portion of that.
It was about a half a mile that wasn't paved in Washington County. It was paved there, so about 3 or 4 years ago, I guess, we paved or finished paving that.
And this front part's another old oil mat. It's just starting to fall apart, you know. We paved this section in here. It doesn't look too bad right there, but it is bad.
You gonna do anything as far as the shoulders?
We'll pull the shoulder of the old 80, you know. Pull it, put a little shoulder rock down when we're done there. But it only goes to the top of the hill here. It'll be 21 foot wide, you know. It's moderate base on the doggone thing, you know. Port of fair condition on this one here. ADT, 2009, unless you got an update, I got like 338 cars a day. But you gotta remember, we paid that after 2009, didn't we, John? Yeah, we paid it after 2009, 2 years ago. So there's a lot more traffic on that road now,
Now
since they don't
there's
have to go
been-
on gravel.
Yeah.
And that's one, it's one of those connectors where you've got
It is.
fair to good condition road on both ends.
How often do you do the traffic counts?
Well, we were gonna do and have all traffic counts ready for this meeting, and we have 5 traffic counters and found out 3 were broken, so.
After the fact, of course.
So some of this is, some of the data is what we did collect this year, but we need to get the counters fixed and go back out again.
But Mountain Home is actually one where the traffic counter was working, and the old was 338, and it is at 522 now, so it has gone up.
Take that early cutters.
Yeah,
Paving will do that.
well, when we get to Kings Grade, we'll have a long discussion about that one too, because that one's gonna have a really increase.
So the next one, and I'll kind of call it the next two because they're connected, is going to be Coast Creek from Willamina Creek to Gilbert Creek, and then back towards town, that last section of Willamina Creek from Gilbert there to that met the Mendenhall Bridge there, right about Buck Hollow, isn't it? Yep, Buck Hollow. That first stretch of Willamette Creek from town to Buck Hollow was paved, how many years ago, Roy? I paved it.
Say 12, yeah, 2012 along in there.
Yeah, about that.
That's when Baker Rock drove the truck, you remember that?
Isn't that what they had to help them come back and do a bunch of grinding on it too?
I don't recall.
Be careful what you say.
I know. It's okay, I'm an easy target for things like that. So again, this is kind of connecting, the last piece of Willamette Creek here. And it's in pretty rough shape. I'll get to the video here. Well, this is the Coast Creek piece.
You know, we have some roads in that area, and I'm thinking of Fort Hill Road, it must be, 5-6 miles long. You'll probably see that next year. We're gonna have to do a 5 mile up there, would kind of consume all of our budget, so we'll probably do that in 2 segments, but you'll probably see Fort Hill.
Now that, part of that goes in Polk County,
Very little, about a half mile.
from 18 up to the top of the hill there.
Just
Bottom.
Just
Down the bottom part?
Yeah.
And then it turns to the end. Sorry.
Well, how much time do we have?
As much as you need.
For dinner?
Sit down.
I like cocktails before dinner too.
So Coast Creek is about just shy of 1.3 miles long. It's a resource road, classified as a resource road, as is Willamette Creek.
And the majority of it is log trucks. I mean, there's a lot of timber coming down these roads.
You've got 375 vehicles a day out there, and like John said, the majority of those are log trucks, and you can tell they are what they do to the road. Current condition, port fair, there is a moderate amount of cracking, not a ton of rutting, and not a ton of base failures, but the road is in pretty poor condition. A lot of uneven surfaces, numerous bumps and dips. And the road is narrow in places, edge cracking was observed. And again, to highlight, it would continue new AC from, would be all the way from town there in Willamette out to Gilbert Creek, which would be
So what's the total, 1.4?
for 1.279 for the Coast Creek portion, and then the Willamette Creek portion is about just shy of 0.8 of a mile. So altogether about 2 miles or so. I'll fast forward on this one, although it's a nice area.
Yeah, it's pretty dry.
Yeah, and it's, we need to keep these roads up, or else we're gonna destroy the bases on them, and then we'll be into it a lot more money.
And here's the piece of Willamette Creek Road. And again, from Mendenhall Bridge, right about Buck Hollow to Coast Creek. Oops. But like I said, just shy of 0.8 of a mile, ADT of 316, port fair condition, moderate cracking, low running, kind of like Coast Creek, low to moderate base failure as well. But again, that last piece there certainly needs it. Guess we jumped to this.
We'll go to Wills Road. Okay, Willis Road, just outside of town here, just off of Baker Creek. We paved a section, I think it was last year, up to Berry Creek. It'll be from Berry Creek on up to the end of pavement, 21 feet wide. It's a local road. ADT, I don't know, you got an update on that one, Griffin? I got 166.9, 2009.
250.
250. yeah.
156 to 250.
166 to 260.
Moderate to low cracking on this one here. Quite a few potholes in it. We patched it here, we patched it there with their hot box time and time again.
Notorious pothole road.
Yeah.
And how long is this road?
This road is actually 2.16 miles long, or 2.2 miles long.
causes that? Just the chronic potholes?
Mostly if you look off to the left, the logging, and the heavy traffic on these roads, they were never built to sustain the traffic that we're running with 80,000, and now they're running 105,000. They're just not built for that. You know, I mean, if you were in Washington County or Clackamas and had all the money in the world, you'd tear that up and put a base down, foot, 18 inches, and start over. But if we did that, this road would consume more than our budget, so. You know, it's just the progression of the way they built roads back then. It was probably a logging road, someone threw a little gravel on it to take the mud out of it, and then they gave it to the county, and they did an oil mat on it, and away we went. We never did have proper construction.
Some of it can be attributed to poor drainage issues, and one of the good things about these roads is we will go out and address drainage issues prior to, so that can alleviate some of the issues as well. Skip ahead as- The crafting doesn't show up in this particular video quite as well as the others.
Too much shade.
Yeah, a little bit of shade, but there is some, not as much as some of the other roads, but there definitely is some crafting.
You see it on the other side.
You can see, yeah.
Yeah, when we do these too, commissioners, as we go through and we evaluate the culverts, if the culvert is life expectancy was, within 5 or 10 years, we just try to tear it out, put new culverts in. We do all new ditching and brush cutting and shoulder gravel, so when we're done, you've seen it.
Yeah.
But we do upgrade the infrastructure, and most of that we go through a lot. When you see our budget, you'll see 50,000 on culverts and stuff like that. That's where that money is allocated for.
Rest. Okay, we'll move on to Corral Creek.
You want Roy?
So Corral Creek, 99W to just east of. This one was a little bit foggy, so it's a little bit tough to see. But
Just film the whole.
Wasn't that foggy, come on.
that's all right.
This, if you remember right, during the winter, a bus went off, and it's quite about a mile up this road is where that bus took that S corner and was hind end and went off the road, and we were on K2, I guess.
Yeah, that's one where they said it's too sharp a curve for the
Been doing it for 50 years, but the one time that they do it, they got
It's too sharp a curve, yeah.
So this is the second longest road at just over 3 miles, 3.12 miles. Minor collector, ADT of 242, but we think it's significantly higher. That was as of 10 years ago. Again, kind of like what John was talking about with the bus, there's a couple super elevated corners, 180 switchbacks that are fairly severe, and as part of this, we will have an opportunity to widen it out on the inside just a little bit and hopefully help with any issues going forward.
Yeah, we've stood up on this one in particular for half a day and decided what cuts and fills we're gonna make, and it can be improved, but you're still gonna have the switchbacks. I mean, it's just no way around that, but you can make it a little wider where the bus drivers that they're hiring nowadays can turn the corner.
Here's where they went off.
Right here's what I went.
Yeah.
And for any of you that frequent this road, the section off of 99W is in particularly bad shape at the moment.
Do you ever use this one?
I won't go near that one.
It is.
It's bad.
It's
Yeah.
bad. And like I said, Commissioner, there's not much we can do. I mean, as far as widening, we can probably get a foot wide width in there, but without doing a lot of major earth moving, you're not gonna do much.
Yeah, jump forward here. Further down. But you can see a lot of raveling and a lot of cracking. moderate amount of running. It is narrow in sections, so like John said, we will widen what we can, where we can.
You just drew off.
I was not the operator. But along the left side of the road is
Bad.
But they've had a lot of traffic up there as far as there's a new dump site, so that's what's causing all that to delaminate over there.
And we'll come out prior to and do some dig out repairs there to make sure that we're fixing it. And then we'll come back.
Here we go. This, Commissioner, you and I sent a letter out, which you're aware of.
Yeah.
And this was my report last week. I said we have about 60, I think it's probably 60 or 70 of those back. What we did was, we sent a letter out, I don't know if you've got the chance to read it, that's one. Mary, you've seen these before, so.
Yes.
Those went out to either Kingsbury and to or McCormick Hill, and what we did is we looked at the assessor's map and said, okay, the landowners adjacent to the property that's affected, we sent these out just for, yeah, it's actually, Commissioner, it's come back to bite us a couple times.
Yeah.
But this one
If you
actually.
didn't do it, it'd probably bite you the other side.
Yeah. This one actually came back, I think there was only 3, one on the McCormick Hill side and 2 on the Kingsgrave and stuff. And for the most part, they were very excited about this one. We are very, very excited to have our road considered for paving. Thank you, Commissioner and Mr. Phelan. This one, okay. Thank you. We are grateful to you all. So, I mean, most of them are very positive understatements. It's not, but the 2 people that were on Kingsgrade, I did call them, and I did call and talk to the one on McCormick. The one guy thought that we were going to have to do a lot of land acquisition, and he wasn't for that, and obviously we're not going to do that. We're just going to do the Chevy, not the Cadillac. So for the most part, the 2 on Kingsgrade were, you know, hey, we got to evolve and things are going to happen. And so they weren't adamantly opposed to it after I talked to them. I'll give you that, Commissioner, anything.
Well, and the worst paved road is cheaper to maintain than the best gravel road anyway.
Well, and you're absolutely right, is this, the steepness of this grade concerned me for a lot of years as far as icy winters and so on and so forth, but we've got pavement that is as steep as this. With this price that you're looking at here, I think we have 350 feet of guardrail, so we are proposing, there's one area here that you'll see that the trees are removed, and it is, you could write a letter on your way down the hill as you're rolling. It's a long ways down, but, so for the most part, we've had nothing but positive comments about this. And I did go out, and I spent the afternoon out there one day, and just kind of, whoever was home, I talked to them.
What, our current traffic isn't much out here, but what do you think the increase will be once this is paved? Double?
It's at 314 in 2009. It's gonna be like Albertson. Albertson got paved, here they come.
Yeah.
Now, this is just down the road from Albertson, it's
Right.
another cut through. They're gonna cut down it just like they did the rest of it. But it's 314, you know, 9 years ago.
And it will relieve some of the traffic on Albertson, but I think that for the most part, people are, especially with McCormick Hill being paved, is now you can come off of North Valley,
Yeah.
go straight up over the hill. It'll take some pressure off of 219, which isn't our road, obviously, but,
Yeah. Well, no, I've been on that road.
it's hard to maintain. It's a very costly road for us to maintain. I mean, you can grade it this week and next week it's in horrid shape again. So we do spend a lot of time and maintenance dollars up here grading. Okay, go ahead.
You'd think it'd blade that thing only in the winter time. Well, in the summertime, those cars going up the hill, they washboard the heck out of them going up the hill. And they get down in the base rock, and there you go.
Yeah. Now you got a real mess.
Yeah.
And the road's been, I mean, it's a good, strong base. It's an adequate base, rock base for new pavement.
except for that spring that we just drove.
That's the only spot.
I saw you speed across that spring there.
Just as you're saying.
We gotta reroute this spring.
It's a gravel road. It's a gravel road. It is a gravel road that's gonna be paved. There's your guardrail section.
Yeah.
That's where you're gonna put it, right there.
Mhm.
In that estimated cost, we have included a contingency for guardrail.
With big rubber bumpers.
So you can come out. You know, in the wintertime, it would concern us, but with our de-icing methodology now, and, you know, when there's snow, we're running 24 hours a day. We keep the roads fairly clean, and, but there will be times it'll be very treacherous.
Yeah.
But it's the same way this, you know, you get a car going down on gravel at 50 miles an hour on a 15% grade, they're out of control too, so.
It's 3.0 what?
2.336 miles.
So what we're proposing, and I'll just go to the next one, why don't we run through this, I think we've probably seen
Right
it.
there.
Oh, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
there's
right,
it.
there's the end there.
So what we're proposing is that, as I think it's your alternate, isn't it? Your alternate would be to pave from existing pavement out to North Valley, or North Valley.
And then the whole stretch of Kings Creek would be.
So the Washington County, is that freshly paved over there?
No, but it's.
It's fairly
one of their-
new.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's 10 or 12 years old, but, this would obviously match up off of, Mountaintop down to their pavement. You know, this was, I don't know if you remember Bitch and Betty. You
Oh, yeah.
remember.
In fact, I was just on this road the other day. I came in.
She liked to be called Bitch and Betty.
That was
You're
her
on
name.
video. I forgot to tell you.
That was her name for
Okay.
herself. She said that she would call in and say, "This is Bitch and Betty."
She was, yeah, she passed away, I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, she went off the road up there.
Are you serious?
Yeah, she had a heart attack or something, and she went off and into a tree. Just up on the mountaintop.
What?
Yeah, it's very
Yeah,
Well,
she
that was
was
only
actually-
about 2 months ago.
She was actually gonna come to Ryak that night and, give a presentation for this paving job, so.
Wow.
Yeah, that was, she, in fact, I saw where she went off, but I drove up there to take a look.
Shouldn't be so
She was
hard on
a
your
neat
customers.
lady. Her and her husband used to come to RIAC meetings
And she requested us call her that.
That's right. I mean, she didn't meet, but she was also very supportive of the work. And yeah, that was really, because she was, wasn't that old, she was only about 66, something like that.
Spring chicken when they're getting to be the age we are.
Just a big-
But anyway, if this is approved through you, I wouldn't mind having Anderson, the cost would be very minimal, is to put up a sign in memory of Betty Jones at the beginning of it. She had advocated for the last 8 years for this road to be paved, and here we're paving it after she's deceased.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you paved it before she was deceased, she might have been a bitch about.
Well, she was, as I said, a brand, she was, as the commissioner said, she.
Yeah. She'd come into the meetings and her and her husband, but he'd just sit there.
He was meek.
She was a talker of the family.
He never said a word.
But she was very polite. I mean,
Right.
she didn't come in ranting or raving, but she definitely made her point.
Mhm. Yeah, grand lady. Go ahead, you discuss.
Here's the end. It's tough to tell, but that is the paved portion of the Washington counties. And it is.
That's what Columbia Hill
Yeah.
And it'll require quite a bit of excavation coming down through there to get the road to fit in there, but we kick the rocks around and we feel that we can do it with minimal disturbance to the property owners and driveways and mailboxes and everything else is coming down through there. So I mean, we do our typical Chevy and just put them down through there. You know, I've talked to those people up there and then they're aware, and it'll substantially increase their traffic, and it'll substantially increase the speed going down both Kingsbury and here too.
Well, it's a natural phenomenon. It happens no matter where we go, from gravel to pavement or from a very poor road to a new paved road. So
You know, it's like Albertson, we had pros and cons on Albertson 5 years ago or whatnot, and I don't think there's a person up there now that if you told them you're gonna turn it back to gravel, I think they'd be ready. They'd be in talking to you.
that came out, and then we shaved off so much of those hills to widen it. And Earl was the same thing.
That's when those letters going out sometimes can be a
Can bite you.
double-edged sword, yeah.
Did on that one, you remember that?
Yeah, but you know, the George Fox kids, with the work they did up there and having those meetings, and now they're happy campers.
Yeah, I never heard a negative comment
You know,
since we've done
in
that.
fact, what's her name?
Cheryl.
Pardon?
Cheryl McCaffrey.
Oh, yeah, she thinks John's great.
Oh,
She just loves
She
John.
loves John now.
No,
She
she
did.
didn't.
But you have a way, I mean, she was,
I'm
now
not-
she's a believer.
I'm an acquired taste.
You are an acquired
When she came up to me, I was out at Stan Helly's, and she came up and said, "Would you tell John again how much I appreciate him?" No, I won't.
Get the bigger head.
It's already out there.
Okay.
So this is alternate, our first alternate. We've talked about it a little bit already. This is the portion of Kingsbury from the gravel down to North Valley.
This gets a
How
lot.
long is this?
It is 1.25 miles, 1.25 miles.
Okay.
And the reason we put it commissioners on as an alternate, it isn't in a horrid condition. It's, it'd be nice just to finish it all off and,
Right.
and then tie the two.
Well, you're gonna
projects.
be up there anyway, and
Mhm.
you know, I'd be a lot better off to do it now than put it on the list for 2 years from now.
And kind of looking forward to, if we do pave the gravel section, the traffic is going to increase, and now would be a good time to.
Yeah, let's do it.
And the last road,
Now, this is, go ahead and give the specifications on it, go ahead.
So- Oh, go ahead, Roy.
okay.
You can see it's 2 miles long. That right there, stopping at the county line on that section right there, it is corral creek. Go ahead and roll that baby. 21 foot wide, it's a gravel section. It's got quite a bit of rock on it. It's gonna take quite a bit of drainage issues on it. You see a few driveways that's coming down pretty steep onto the road. We'll have to do something with that. ADT back then, in 2010, was only 94 cars. I'm sure it has more than 94 cars on it because they do cut through. Since Earl was done, they'll come across that and hook on the crowd break and come home, or do the creaming section. Base failures, you got low. Like I said, there's quite a bit of rock on it. Would add quite a bit more rock to it. Of course, we brush it and do the drainage work and call it work.
Their road is almost impossible to drive on.
Well, you know, we get quite a few complaints about, I mean, they want, the people, don't get me wrong now, that's moved from town out in the country, and they want it just as smooth as glass, you know what I'm saying? So we do get quite a few complaints on it. But you can see right there, the road's really not that bad. It is a little narrow, you know?
Roy, are you saying their expectations are too high?
Some people are that way, I think.
The dust in the summertime has got to be horrid to those people out there, because it is kind of
It
a
gets
flat
dusty.
road and people do.
But with all the work we're doing all around it, we'd be foolish not to just finish up while we're up there, if we can, if it's in the.
Well, if we just chip in, you'll have people calling and wondering why we're doing this and not that, but, you know, we're just chipping away at it as we go through these high-traveled gravel roads, and they're very costly for us to maintain, so there is some good rationale why we're doing this.
You're gonna get complaints either way, so at least we can cut down the cost of maintenance.
And this is one of our higher
Right.
Don't say that publicly, because everybody will start calling us. I want my road paved, so I just call them on it.
If they call anybody, they want them paved, doesn't matter how many cars, houses are on it. It's like out there off of 18.
You know, we started that program about 8 years ago, paving some of these gravel roads, and I think it has paid off handsomely, you know, and we'll give you part of our discussion is that we buy Ford blades, as you know, every other year. And the discussion right now is, do we need Ford? We cut down 60 miles of gravel road, and they were high-profile roads, and maybe we can do away with one of those blades. So there's $350,000 that's a savings.
Not to mention the annual savings for the going out and working on the roads all the time.
All right, we might wanna kinda
We're just
wrap,
about
yeah.
we're just right at the end. This comes up to cream.
Brian's
that's it.
waiting and we've gotta,
No worries, Mary's got a date.
That's,
Another one of those.
Yeah, I think that is it.
That is
So
it.
we just run out of time.
well, thank you for all the work that you and Ryak and Lou and everybody have put into this, and definitely
Were you going
appreciate it.
out to get?
Well, that's what I was just gonna say, Laura, you know, we have budgeted the whole amount of 2.5, whatever it is.
Do you want to have the board approve the 218 MIP road list and alternates then on Thursday? Renee, are you okay for it to be on the consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
And that'll work well.
John loves to do this.
There we go. We're ready to go ahead, so.
Beautiful. Thank you, John. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
You bet. Very much.
Appreciate all the work.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, Erica.
thank you.
Thank you.
Griffin, you don't do the paving, yeah, I understand that you're good.
No trucks going up that bad.
No more
Thanks.
trucks with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
All righty.
Take care.
Okay, our emergency manager is here, Brian Young, to give us an update on all the things going on in the Office of Emergency Management. Thanks for coming, Brian.
Thank you for having me.
It's always nice to have you.
I had a sneeze attack this morning and I did something to my neck.
Oh, no.
So if I look like this and I'm
Oh.
lying. So, where would you like me to begin?
Why don't you give us an ENS update on your numbers, the base numbers, and then the landline, and then the cell, the opt-in numbers?
Perfect.
Whatever's on the top of your pile.
What did that have to do with my stuff?
I have it. Do you want me to read back to you? Your,
No, I printed out an outline. I was going to cover a bunch of stuff today.
yeah, whatever you get to.
And it's buried in here. I know it is.
I don't know that.
There it is. There it is. So I'll go ahead and start with the ENS, the Emergency Notification System. I checked this morning, and we are looking at 1,515 people have opted in. The number is going up slowly, but it is going up, which is good. There's a couple of opportunities that we have coming up that I think will increase those numbers. And in the system complete, we are looking at 21,796 total contacts. As I was explaining to Commissioner Sterrett on the phone, you know, if you think of it that way, it's almost a quarter of the population, but it's really not a true cross-section of the population. It's just, we're reaching 21,700 and some odd people. So, which is good. So, and as we move forward, that number is bound to increase. It was released on December 15th, and as you are well aware, I called in a favor and got that good prop, 2 days earlier with the earthquake,
Yeah.
Got it set up really well.
That
so-
was really well done.
So yeah, so I'm not gonna do that for the full-scale exercise and the annual test that's coming up, just so you know. So if something does happen, it's not me.
Yeah.
No. So we're getting ready to start phase 2, the employee side of it. We're gonna start with the sheriff's office, and not because that's who houses me, but it's just easy access for me and easy to navigate the admin there, and they will direct their deputies to go ahead and participate, and make sure that they participate in it, because they want this to be successful also. The employee side, I think they look at the ability to conference call in and hold briefings and do call outs, so they're pretty excited for that system. I will start training YCOM at the end of February, so the dispatchers will have the ability to send out those notifications. I've met with their supervisor staff and have trained them. They know how the system works. They're all set up, ready to go, and are pretty excited to be a good partner in this. They've been a big help in this.
And they're good people.
Yeah. I mean, a huge help. They, from drafting, or not drafting, but assisting in the drafting of policy and practices. It was.
I do remember speaking to Patty the other night at their YCOM meeting. They were very positive and thankful for the job that everybody's done in getting that up and getting them trained and finishing the training so they can use the system.
Yeah, good. That's good to know. Pretty exciting times as we grow with that. So as I mentioned earlier, the annual test will coincide with our full-scale exercise on May 4th of this year. What we plan on doing with that test is to test the residential landlines and the opt-in profiles only. We decided, at this point, we've decided to keep out the business profiles because it'll be during the week. If the landlines for the houses work, we know that the landlines for the businesses are gonna work. We just might as well just leave those out for now and just test those two functions. So looking forward to the feedback on that, especially since it was a vendor supply list on the landline data, see how many out-of-staters we get, why am I on this list. I think it's bound to happen, especially more articles that I read on emergency notification. So I'll go back to the top where I was originally going to start, and we're finalizing the debris management plan update. It's complete from the vendor. The only thing that needs to be done now is to go to the cities and just talk to them, not for approval, but rather for a heads up. Hey, this is what's in the plan, let's go, and then at some point I'll brief you guys on what the highlights of those updates were. Jay Harris, the Newburgh Public Works Director, was an evaluator and pretty, I don't want to say active member in the drafting of the update, but he was part of that, so he's pretty well aware of it, and so he's one that is receptive to that idea. Amity and Sheridan lost their Public Works Director while we were doing this, and I think have since gotten replacements, so it's been hard to reach out to them, and poor Frank Sheridan was a little busy there for a while. Full-scale electrical.
So do you have a plan for reaching out and working with them to get them up to speed?
Yeah, what I'll do is once I get word from Frank Sheridan and Justin Hogue with Amity, I'll start working with them and just scheduling one-on-ones. It's just as easy to go out and travel one-on-one, give them time to look at it, and again, I think some of the plans have been articulated in the past. It's not a regulatory document as much as it is kind of a guidance and things to look out for. So even though there might be a role and responsibility that a city is listed in there, it's probably a best practice type thing rather than a, hey, you will do this or.
Right.
So, and I think with BIOF, it just makes us more successful. And, Yamhill County Public Works was very involved in this process also, which was good since, if you look at the function of debris management, it's heavy on public works. So they had a couple of seats at the table, and it was good to see the involvement. I was very pleased with that. The full-scale exercise, I'm sorry, Kent, should I move on?
Yeah.
Do you have any more? Okay. Full-scale exercise is on May 4th. We're going to be testing the mass fatality plan. It appears that plan's been in draft form for several years, and I think it's time to put it to bed and let's get that tested and finalized and on the books. So it revolves around a bus crash with a school bus. You know, we try and think of worst case scenarios, but the things that we're trying to test is mortuary affairs and how the county, different county agencies partner with the county ME, partners with the state ME, and where do we get resources. So we had a meeting today with Dr. Koenig and have a couple more scheduled to get a good idea on his role and where we're at. So we're working on the same page. We also, because there were some eyes opened with the school district, since it does involve a school bus, how do we as a county share information with the school districts and vice versa? So we're going to conduct a tabletop exercise with just the schools to test their plans revolving around this type of incident, just so you know they know and are aware that okay, we can be a resource, but we also might want to lean on you as a resource in these cases also. Basically boils down to I think one thing that's listed in every after action report, and that revolves around communication. You know, I don't care what after action report you look at, there's always a communication element. Lime Valley Medical Center will have the full-scale side of it by opening a family reunification center, and the family assistance center will be up and running, and that's a function of public health, and that's more of the mental health side of things for the victims' families and well, survivors' families too, if there's some mental health needs. I was approached by the LDS Church, and they wanted to know if I was interested in sponsoring a prep fair for May 19th. They're looking to have another one put on, and they'll do the planning, most of the planning behind it, but we're concerned about attendance being low because it was at the church, and they want to make sure that they can reach out to the entire community. I'm all for it. I'll be reaching out to the community center, see if we can have it at the community center. I think another bonus to that is we can actually bring vendors in to actually sell their product, you know, and prep kits and things like that, rather than be bound by, I think, their tax exempt status in a church. They couldn't do that. So we could get some pretty good participation in this. One of the interesting things is CERT will, and kind of has agreed to, providing teachers for the breakout sessions. Those I think are good. There's some good CERT classes that they can put on that talk about, you know, disaster psychology, you know, basic first aid. You know, there's nothing in these breakout sessions is going to be giving a certificate or anything like that, but it just I think can increase interest in the community. One thing we did this last year and also continue to do is I'm working with the school districts and the school district administrators to basically finalize or review their emergency operations plans or lack thereof, trying to get a basic commonality throughout the county with all of our schools. You know, that one administrator knows the direction of another school. You know, if they happen to be in a different district, they can kind of, and there's a disaster or an emergency, they can kind of know the general direction and be of assistance, but also build that base for their district.
You know, what they want to do is every year, the Association of the School Boards, they have their meeting out here at the ESD campus. And all of the school boards come together from Yamhill and Polk counties to, and you'll have Sheridan, Wilmina, Yamhill, Newburgh, they will be there. Be a great time, and you can get some time on the Jim Green is the executive director of SBA. So I can give you his contact.
Yeah, that would be great.
That'd be a really good place to bring all the schools and give them all the same message on the same night.
Kind of like what I did with the emergency notification system with the city managers and administrators, just come into one room and talk about it, you know, instead of
Well, the
you bouncing all over the
superintendents
place.
used to also meet on a regular basis, the county,
Mhm.
you know, wide superintendent group.
Well, they all, for the most part, they all show up at this meeting
Mhm.
also, with the school boards or with the.
Yeah, and it's one thing I've noticed is sometimes the superintendent, because that's who these meetings are with.
Mhm.
You know, sometimes you'll have one drop off, well, I have this late minute emergency and this and that, so it's kind of nice to get them all in the same room, but they're moving forward, they're excited about it. I think they like the idea of being able to have this plan and reach out, you know, one of the anecdotal story is, you know, they're all stressed out about who's gonna do what during a disaster, and oh my God, what about this, what about that, you know, and I'm like, wait a minute, guys, you got 400, 500, whatever, willing hands to help you, especially at the high school level. Give them assignments, not anything life-threatening or anything like that. They can be area monitors, message runners, things like that. Don't stress out, you know, think outside the box. So they're looking good.
Okay.
Participated in active shooter drill at Washer last week. It was good. Mac school districts wanted to test that part of their policy, so it was good. I was an evaluator, and we brought public health, fire department, and police department, and school district was there. So yeah, it turned out good. Max CERT, as you're aware, we've taken on Minville CERT. They are no longer, and they're now under the Yamhill County CERT. In that, we've gained two CERT trailers. The goal is to have one out west, one central, and one east in the Newburgh area. They've secured a location, I think, at the Newburgh wastewater treatment plant, and we've got one in Sheridan, so we should be good to go to kind of work on that island concept. Jumping around here a little bit just because I want to build a crescendo and put it in order. I'm looking for, this year I'm going to be looking for a train-the-trainer course for NIMS compliance courses. The things that the county is required to have for the ability to go after grants. And the reason why I want to do that is, in my mind, I think it could be a cost saver for us to be able to have that in-house training, to be able to provide that training to county folks when there's a need, and have it local. And then once we satisfy our requirements or seats in that class, we can open it up to outside agencies to come in. Again, most of these, I think it's pretty limited to like ICS 300 or 400, but you know, that's depending on the layout, can be a 4 or 5 day class. And if we can get a whole bunch of folks from the county that might need it to get compliance and keep that in-house, and they're working locally, and then we're not having to pay travel expenses, then I think that's a cost savings all around. So I'll be looking for that, so please be patient on that, but I like it. One of the things, I think I don't want to say it's the elephant in the room, but it's something that I think that the department heads don't really want to talk about, but the COOP plan update. We, as you're aware, we kind of put that on the back burner at the end of last year, so you guys can concentrate on the contract negotiations and get through that. Fortunately, that's been resolved, and I think it's time that maybe we move on to get that COOP plan update up and rolling. It sounds more cumbersome than I think it is. We're looking at a one-day workshop where whichever representative from the department wants to come or be part of that, or designated as the person, comes into this workshop, and they enter real-time data with the contractor on hand. And at the end of the day, they've got a mostly complete COOP plan, and they can tweak it with details if needs have changed and they need to conference with somebody back in their department on what hey, we actually need this at our secondary location. They can tweak it on their own.
Are they updating what is already in the system?
Most of the plans haven't been touched in at least a couple of years. I went through and I looked at some dates today, and some people haven't logged on since 2014. That's a very small percentage of them. You know, I'm looking at late 16, early 17 as a bulk of the last logins. So I really question the accuracy of the data that's in there, and that's just on the contact info side. You know, fortunately, I think locations or secondary locations don't change that often, but there might be some technology issues that might either require more or less equipment at these, you know, so those are things that might need to be evaluated. So it would be nice to get in there and clean it up, but there's names in there that no longer are for the county, and so each department, I think, is needing to have that person that can do that. So once we leave that workshop, those monthly emails can go out to those department heads or designees or both that says, hey, this month we're concentrating on the line of succession. At the end of this workshop, you know what it's gonna be? 5-minute review. Yep, we're current. Boom, I'm done for the month. Work your way through 12 months. At the end of that 12 months, you basically have a rolling update, you know, so if we can, and that's what the vendors said that the goal of this training is, and if we can certainly stand by that goal or reach for that goal, then I think we're money ahead and are able to keep that progress going.
Speaking of money, did we figure out how we were going to, is that something we'll assess each department, or is that something that would come out of their budget or administration's budget?
Yeah, I don't know. I can tell you that the current cost for that one-day workshop is $2,600. And that $2,600 is a state, I don't know if that's the right word, but a state bid. It's a state agreed upon price. So everybody that works throughout the state, they get that contractor for $2,600.
So is that something that we just kind of do with what we do with the metal detector?
Oh, I think we could actually take it out of the insurance reserve because it's kind of a liability and insurance thing for the entire county. I wouldn't think that would be it.
If you're talking about a state price agreement, then we don't need to do any competitive bidding. It's already a state issued agreement, then we can just buy off of it. And if that's what it is, then we're not figuring that out.
Yeah, and I'm certain that's what it is. I was told, and excuse my ignorance, the ORPN, using the ORPN number, and you know, so I'm assuming that everything's in place for us to just go ahead and take care of this. I mean, they're the contractor that supplied the COOP program anyways, so they're the ones that are gonna come in.
Great.
Yeah, so I guess, who do I reach out to kind of figure out the paying of it and when I should start scheduling? Okay.
Oh, Ken,
Both
you
of us.
win.
It looks better from your seat.
Cannot chat with you.
Okay.
Great.
Perfect.
Informed stamp.
So I think that covers most of what I had covered, except for I have handouts today. I'm excited. Yeah. Congratulations, it's your guest cards. And you guys are all aware of the guest cards and how they work and
I think
all
my
that
city
good
gets
stuff.
card won't work.
Yeah.
Of course, I have never used it, I don't know.
So a guest card is ordered from a federal program, and it basically gives you priority on landline phone calls in the event of a disaster or emergency. And there's instructions on how to activate it and use it, and there's some questions with our GETS rep on whether voice over internet protocol phone lines, if you know they work, and how to work all that stuff. So feel free to activate it or do a test call on it. I get a report every month that says who's tested what and all that good stuff. So
Good to test it monthly, isn't it?
if you can, yes, absolutely, just test it monthly. So it's completely up to you. And I guess a side note, kind of along the same lines of communication, and you might be aware of this dealing with Verizon under government contracts. there's a program called WEPS or WPS, Wireless Priority Service. I found out that that is actually going to be a standard for government contracts from Verizon, no cost. As of, I think right now, it's an added cost depending on your carrier, but it sounds like it's gonna be a no-cost automatic add-on to anything government contracted. The problem, if anybody has a phone that is expensed or on a stipend, that type of thing, those phones cannot be bridged over into that program, so there's no way to even, and no way to get them over there. So basically what that does is it gives our cell numbers, or our cell phones priority in disasters. They basically operate on their separate system, so it's actually pretty
That
cool.
white space.
Yeah, right in between.
So, Brian, that was something that was another layer with the emergency alert system, that there was remember when we talked earlier about why with a federal, when you had something where there was a national disaster or something, and it was probably another layer for our system to have to try to incorporate.
Yeah, you're talking with all the, it's easy to do with all the acronyms from the federal level, but I think you're thinking of the IPAWS where you can do a regional.
No, I think we talked about this at one point. You said this was going to be the next step for us once we'd gotten to where we had pretty much everything figured out with just our inputting and people opting in.
Yeah, this has actually no connection with the emergency notification system. The next piece that I'm looking for on the emergency notification side of things is to get the certification to do the IPAWS warnings, because nobody in the county has that ability right now. And the IPAWS warning is the same thing that Hawaii used to send out that message.
There's an anomaly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that hits everybody. It doesn't matter if you're opted in or anything. That goes to your emergency alert on your phone. It's the type of technology that does the TV crawlers at the bottom. You know, we've seen them periodically with tornadoes out towards Silverton. You know, it still hits our area, but you know, so that's really tightly controlled stuff, and why us in emergency management, when we heard Hawaii saying, "Oh, you pushed the wrong button," we were kind of like, "Huh?" Didn't make sense. Yeah, so obviously now we know there's more to the story than just that, but that's a pretty serious system. But that's the only thing that I can think of on the warning side that's next for the emergency notification side. Anything wireless, telephone wise, and our ability to dial out, it has nothing to do with the emergency notification system.
There have just, I don't know if anybody here heard, there's more discussions now at the federal level regarding the use of company or governmental-owned cell phones for personal use. And part of it was the program Brian talks about, where even though you may be on a program where you get an unlimited program, like if you're in Yamhill County or whatever, and you really don't pay for anything personal unless you exceed your limit of what you pay for personal. The IRS now has determined that that is still taxable, that they have to send at the vendor, meaning Verizon or Sprint or whatever, has to also on your statement put a value of your personal, of every call. So even though you may only pay $40 for your phone, governmental, if out of those $40, 15 of it were determined to be personal calls, you have to reimburse the government agency the $15 for those personal calls, even though you haven't exceeded the over amount and gotten more charges.
Well, we do that. We pay for all of our personal calls now.
Oh, well, I know, but what they're saying is a lot of organizations don't pay if you're within, like if you pay a monthly charge and you're under that monthly charge and it's included, you don't have to pay for your personal calls. But now they're saying you're
Excuse
going to
me, keep
have
us
to.
on track because we're running a little bit late. So anyway, all
So
right.
that is
back
going
to-
to affect that program.
So, is that it? Oh, I know, you were just, if you had mentioned the Amity water bills and the Sheridan water bills as far as our
Oh, yeah.
info?
Yeah, we just ordered up 700, actually, we could only do it in batches of 1,000, emergency notification flyers. And because Amity agreed to stuff their envelopes with those flyers, we're starting to get buy-in from the cities on advertising this, and I think that's a direct result from the meeting that we had to show them that, hey, this is what you guys will have the power to do, and you know, please help us out and play. Sheridan, on the other hand, decided that you just send me the electronic version and we'll send it up to our vendor in Portland that prints their water bills and mails them out, and we'll just get them included. So, yeah, so that was pretty cool. Either way, I don't care, as long as, you know, as long as they're willing to send it out to their customers, then I'm okay with it.
Great. Well, Brian, thank you for that update.
Yes,
You're
you're
busy.
welcome. Thanks,
Lots-
Brian.
You're keeping,
Yes.
you're keeping
Oh,
very
yeah.
busy.
Yeah, it's, sometimes but it's good, it's good.
All right, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks,
for
Brian.
coming,
Sure.
Brian. All right.
Good job.
All right, let's move on to item C, which is the preliminary consent agenda. And that would include the approval of the minutes in item 1 for, yes,
May I request a 5-minute recess?
yes, sir.
Thank
We're
you.
going to take 5 minutes here. So we'll be back. We'll be back. All right. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
All good stuff.
We have a disaster,
Yeah.
and all the phone lines are tied up.
You can break it.
Informal work session, and we will, for February 13th, 2018, and we'll start with item C1, which is the approval of the following minutes, November 9th, 2017, for formal session. Is that something we can?
Commissioner Stewart, not to be disrespectful, but I think we agreed that the consent agenda, we should be able to
We're not
just,
going to.
we don't need to go through them.
Okay, beautiful.
Commissioners should just
Look at
look at it ahead of time, and if
them.
they have a question about them, then they can call them out.
Okay, so we've got the, are we okay with the consent agenda then at this point? Let's move on to item D, which is an on-consent.
Do we need to make a motion, or did we already
No,
have
we
those
don't have to.
additional
You
items?
can't vote.
At
Just-
informal.
You either say yes, we're in agreement, or we want to hold off
Take it off.
consent agenda.
But we actually talked about adding things to the consent agenda.
We
Not yet.
can,
We can.
after they're
After.
discussed, if we
Down
decide
here.
to move the
Okay.
consent agenda.
So we'll move to item D, which is non-consent agenda items, other topics for discussion, which is D1, the discussion of the mileage reimbursement rate for 2018 for county departments, and I believe that our administrator sent out information to explain the difference. Is that something we care to move to the consent agenda?
Well, I didn't make a recommendation. I just informed you that the IRS rate
Right.
is now, the ceiling is 54.5 cents per mile. The current county rate is 53 cents per mile. In the past, the board has sometimes raised it and sometimes has not. It's at your discretion currently, and it's really up for your discussion at this point.
So is there any
I personally think we should raise it to IRS allowable.
keep it at the, move it to the IRS's rate for consistency?
Okay?
Okay, so
Then are we okay if we put it on the consent agenda?
that'll go on the consent agenda. Item D2 is Commissioner Olson had requested that the board discuss the 2018 work session topics and has given us a list of some of the items. that-
I gave you some, I consolidated all that down into kind of an easier list for you to look at. And since it's just work sessions only. Cut these down back. I'll put a chair.
Got one for me? Okay.
As we looked at one of the things last year, as I talked about doing, was looking at wanting to do more of the work sessions so we get a handle on some of the things we're doing, because it was my thing, we just didn't happen to get to them all in our regular meetings. At the bottom, this is our page off of the website. At the bottom, there's certain things, I've identified 4 things that I would like the board to consider adding for discussions at work sessions. In the second column, one is goals and objectives discussion. When do we do, again, as you know, our commission policy manual states that we will do them. I guess that we haven't done them in 10 to 12 years.
Excuse me, just a little point of
Sure.
clarification. That's not a policy manual, that was a leadership project that was embarked upon by a couple of commissioners who went through the AOC leadership.
Then we should have it in there if
It's not, it's, what it is, it was never anything that was meant to be other than informative. So it's not something that we're
Well,
using as policy.
that being said.
It was developed at a work session.
Yeah, that being said, I'm really honestly, that being said, and if that's, I'm appalled at an organization this big that doesn't do organizational wide goal setting. I'm just totally appalled.
Doesn't do-
Frustrated, appalled that we don't do organizational wide goal setting, and we haven't.
Do you want to talk about each one of these things as we go through?
No, I'm just talking about, but I'm just
Can we,
giving
can
these.
we address
Right.
that? Do you want to address that?
Oh,
now?
you can address them now. I'm just identifying those things that I would like to have work sessions on to discuss. If we want to address those now at this work session, that's fine, I don't care.
Well, I think it's important that we determine whether or not we're going to, which ones of these we want to try to schedule so that we can make time for them so that they get scheduled, or even determine whether or not these are things we want to schedule. So I don't know how you want to do that now. Do you want to go through these? Because you've given
Four
us
things.
a list over here.
Those are just part of the goals and objectives.
So this
That's
would be
just
under
things-
goals and objectives.
Those are under goals and
Okay,
objectives.
got it. And then, so you wanted to put, to schedule goals and objectives, so a discussion of this.
Right, whether we do
One
even
work
do it or not,
session,
right.
and said core, and then the strategic doing, and then the Yadkin County tourism. And so you want to talk about that at this point?
Yes, I
scheduling these.
just want to see what the other commissioners' feelings are about those 4 items.
Okay.
Is identifying them for discussion at a work session, each one of those items. And then at that work session, may decide we don't want to do anything more about it, if that's what we decide
Okay.
to do. But this is just to get those 4 things on.
Sounds like a plan. So, let's see, let's start with goals and objectives. Do we want to, at this point, determine whether that gets scheduled? Or do we want to schedule schedule a work session for each one of these and then make those determinations at that work session?
Yeah.
I'm confused.
I'm confused as well because I thought that this is
Oh,
what we were talking
That
about
was
today.
just goals and objectives. No, that was only part of it. That's just to cover the goals and objectives to go along with this first
Okay.
piece. So if we were to have a discussion on whether we should do goals and objectives or not, that's generalized information that I produced on that discussion we would have on goals and objectives.
Because that's said course in, I'm confused as well as to what this is as compared to what this is.
Okay, this basically takes this takes this, and boils a lot of this down into just topics for work sessions. Now, we may talk about those in one of those topics, but this just boils that down into topics.
Okay.
Yeah, but all of our departments do a goal setting for their individual departments, set their agenda for the coming year, do they not?
To my knowledge, yes.
Not, I hear we don't. I hear we have departments.
Can you tell
that
us
don't.
who you hear that from? Because I think when we talk about the greater ubiquitous I'm hearing, that can come from, that sometimes can be, either misinformation or disinformation or defining who's saying these things so we can, because now we just cleared up something that was not a Yamhill County Government Handbook that you were thinking was, and it's not.
Yeah, and I still believe it should
It's
be,
not a
but you're right.
policy.
It's not a policy book.
Yeah.
So let's,
I want to go back to something Commissioner Primasich said, though. Even if we had every department that did goals and objectives, how do we know the goals and objectives they set meet the overall goals and objectives of the county? We don't.
well, see, it's sort of like when you talk about the commissioners having a goal. I think that the commissioners have their own goals, but as a board, we don't have one goal. I don't know how we could, other than to be true to.
Okay, I'll give you just one example. I would have trouble, and I mentioned this to Laura, of in the future approving any increases or any more approvals for either renting or purchasing buildings. Because we have no strategic, as part of a goal, we have no, and we're the governing body. We have no strategic plan that tells us what our space utilization needs to be in 10 years. So we own 18 pieces of property downtown, we rent another, I think it's 9 or 10 pieces of property downtown, because we go year to year, we don't know what our space, we have no plan and we have no way of saving money to determine what our plans are gonna be. So are we just gonna continue forever to rent property, to lease property, to buy property, not knowing where we need to be?
So maybe what we can do at this point, and I think this just might be easier, if for us to schedule a work session to talk about the goals
Goals
and
and
objectives.
objectives, that's correct.
And then we can schedule another one, say, of course, in here, under,
But SEDCOR really, it's not mentioned as, I think economic development is in there, but SEDCOR itself is mentioned
Well,
as
I
an
can
example.
put, I'm meeting with Chad on Thursday here, and we're discussing the, what we're doing, what SEDCOR's gonna be doing as part of their contract with Yamhill County. I'm gonna be on the selection committee for the new person that they're hiring that closes Friday, for the new person that they're bringing on, that is gonna be specific to Yamhill County. I told Chad that I definitely want to be a part of that selection and be able to eyeball the person.
I know, Commissioner, that you've taken the lead in economic development, but I always understood we were a body of 3 people. I take it back that you decided you're gonna be on the selection committee, you decided you're gonna meet
No,
with Chad.
I told Chad.
You just said that.
Well, that's what I said. I told Chad, we contracted with SEDCOR.
Right.
To operate our economic development.
Uh-huh.
Chad had no, has no obligation to have anybody on that selection committee. When he told me it was closing Friday, I said I would like to be a part of the selection committee for the person that's gonna be doing economic development for Yamhill County. That's it. And Chad said, I definitely want you to be there. That was how that happened. Now, that's,
But you're
that
meeting with
is
him this
my-
Thursday,
I'm sorry,
you're meeting with him Thursday.
I'm meeting with him Thursday.
As a commissioner, I would have liked to know that. That's all I'm saying, I would have liked to know. Because if we wouldn't be talking about it now, 2 weeks from now, we'd have no idea you met with him.
well, I think what we should do is have Chad come and give us an update.
Well,
That's what this
and
was
that's
all
what-
about.
No,
Where are
and
we?
that's
Where
what
do we
he's
go?
gonna be doing. That's part of what the discussion with Chad was.
What you're having with Chad, not what the board's having with Chad, what you're having with
What
Chad.
we discussed was every quarter, Chad will be here and reporting on, and it was in his contract, reporting on contacts they've made, businesses they've communicated with, a whole list of things that they will coming to report to this board every quarter.
Okay, well, as far as I'm concerned, just skip all these, I'm not willing to do any of these. I'm so frustrated, because there's absolutely, in this commission, I have never been part of an organization that does not do information sharing like this organization. I've never been part of a governmental organization like this. You have to pry things out of people to get information. And I just don't think it's right. But that's my
What
opinion.
kind of information are you not privy to?
You want to know a good one? I'll tell you a good one, Commissioner. You went to Willamina, took people from Boeing to Willamina. Did Commissioner Starrett I even know about that? No.
I was there. Well, I was there, not for the initial part of it, but I was there for the tour to Willamina.
Well, I sure wasn't. I didn't know a thing about it.
You weren't even on board at that time.
You weren't here yet.
No, this is something that happened since that time. I'm just,
recognized-
I'm tired of talking. I'm not going to talk about it.
Well, as a board, when we come to.
My list is done.
When we come to points of disagreement, we can't take our toys and go home. We have to sit and we have to work it out amongst ourselves. So,
Nobody wants to work it out is the problem.
well, I think we're trying to do that right now. So, and I'll say for myself, I have had a frustration or two over not getting information.
Mhm.
I don't think that it's a systemic problem. I think that there are going to be times when, now for instance, I did not know about that, but I also know that as a, for instance, liaison for Health and Human Services, I'm doing an awful lot of different things with Silas that I'm not going to come to you and say, you know, we just met with so-and-so from the state. I met with the head of
Don't
DHS.
expect you to.
Well, then I don't know that there's a difference here,
I
because
do.
this is his
I look at the
liaison.
difference between initiatives and being a liaison. To me, there's a big difference. Now, if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but there's a big difference in initiatives that impact all of us as elected commissioners versus impact a department of our liaisons. You're right, I don't come to you and talk about everything that goes on in the assessor's office, because that's a liaison. Economic development to me is not a liaison. It's
Well,
an
we have it-
initiative.
We have it broken down in our liaison duties as a commissioner who would, and maybe. we
Well, I'm
just-
sorry, but I just don't agree with it, but I'm willing to do whatever the board wants, but I don't agree.
Well, let's just go back to economic development, because we've always treated economic development as a department. And maybe what we're doing is we're sort of, it's the semantics of, it's not really a county department, but it is a county area of interest. So we've always had one commissioner who's been focused on economic development. And so in this particular case, this would be, I would consider anything with economic development to be sort of tantamount to a department, even though it's not, because you've got to have a liaison to that, and that is what Commissioner Primizich is. So if this was going on where Commissioner Primizich was going to be meeting with Chad, I guess this is something we all should have known, and that's what Commissioner updates would be about. And I would assume that's what we were going to do.
This was not a secret meeting. I made arrangements with him yesterday at the reception at the governor's last night.
I'm not saying it was a secret meeting.
No, I'm just, and Chad was there, and I've been,
Well,
after
maybe
Chad,
I'm wrong,
I've had
because I
many
look-
phone conversations.
I'll
with
apologize
Chad.
then, because I'm wrong, because I look at initiatives totally different than the way I look at departments.
And I think what we've done as a board, and typically, and since I've been here, is that we've treated it as a department. And I don't know that it's a question of us keeping information from each other, but I know, for instance, I've been working on a whole bunch of stuff that I haven't brought to you guys.
I have too, and I'm sure Stan
Well,
has.
I mean, just
has
look
too.
at the whole thing with the foreclosed property and the youth drop-in center. That was something that I've been working on forever, but didn't have anything to bring to you because they didn't have any meat. So I kind of didn't come and say, well, now I'm gonna go over here with Silas, and now we're gonna meet with Jeff Sargent. So wait till I had something, and I didn't.
No, I
So-
know where you're talking from, Madam Chair. I just don't like the way it's done, but that's just
So
me.
let's talk about how we can fix this. So, for instance, in this particular case, this is something that perhaps we would have done in a commissioner update.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
And
And I've discussed things like this with Laura all the time, because I know she meets with everybody individually, but anytime I've got things going on, Laura's pretty much aware of what my schedule is and where I'm going, what I'm doing. I don't have any problem sharing that, and just like I shared that with you, it wasn't as
It's
a
not-
surprise or
Let me
anything.
ask Christian a question, because maybe I'm confused. Then, because I know I share a lot of things with Laura too, just like you share a lot of things with Laura. But if we were gonna make a decision on how we do SEDCOR or whatever, and I'm just using SEDCOR as an example. If we use SEDCOR, even Laura told me that, because I gave her some stuff that I wanted to bring up to the commissioners, that, well, we can't do that because it's a serial meeting. So if you tell Laura something, and Laura comes and tells me,
If I
she
tell
can't
Laura
do
that I'm
that.
having a meeting with somebody and you ask her a question about economic development, there's
That's
nothing wrong with her telling you.
But how would I know
that
to
I'm
ask her a
meeting-
question if I don't know what's occurring?
No, well, no, anything that you have about economic development, and Laura would say, well, I know Commissioner Primza is gonna be meeting with Chad. If you have that question, then we can bring that to a table. I don't have,
But
But
I
I
don't have a
do,
problem
I
discussing.
do think that your point is well taken in that you have to know something is afoot to be able to ask the question. So for instance, we've got a tourism question here. This has been something that we've never put on a work session. We've never addressed it. It's something that maybe there are things going on about it, but I don't know, you don't know.
We talked about it, we talked about whether we should have a transit lodging tax. We did it over in formal session. And I talked to Christian, and he said that it would have to go to a vote. There's no way around that.
Sure.
And so I got on the phone with Veronica, who I've worked with forever, and Melissa Grace, Sheriff Kelch, and said, we need to find out, number one, is there an appetite in Yamhill County for a transit lodging tax? In order to find that out, we need to raise a few bucks, do a poll, and see if
They
in fact
need it, right,
there,
they need to do
and
that.
so the three of us have met, or well, the four of us have met 3 times now, and we've gotten a bid on what it would take to have a poll. I've been reaching out to certain people to try and get donations toward that end, so that we could see. I didn't want to spend any more money on tourism until we found out if we're going to actually pursue it, that's all.
But, and I don't want to pile on,
But
but
that's all right.
that's an example of something that we should know about. I didn't know about it until just now.
Okay.
And so it's like after the fact. And I think what happens is that sometimes we get so caught up, and I've been guilty of this myself.
And I have to.
With, you're so passionate about your thing, and you're going ahead, that you're not bothering to stop and remembering that we need to share that with each other. And I think that what happens at Commissioner Updates is we're all running off to another meeting and we don't get to do it. So I think this might be a good thing in the way that we're now saying there are some things going on that the rest of the board hasn't been updated on. That's all this means. It doesn't mean that we're deliberately
And I think,
obfuscating.
Commissioner, that's exactly why I wanted those things listed. Tourism, to me, tourism could end up to be a dead horse. I mean, when we have this work session discussion, if it's gonna be a dead horse, then it should be a dead horse.
I
Let's call
agree.
it a dead horse.
Well, I agree. And so I think maybe now what we need to do is to schedule each one of these things
That's all I was
as a
asking for.
work session, so that maybe between now and when the work session occurs, it's already come up as a commissioner update and it becomes moot. If, in fact, we still have questions about some of the things you brought up here, or some of the things that are on this list, then they get covered as a work session. We've covered our bases, so that nobody has to feel they're not getting the information to do their job.
Yeah, and I'd like to apologize again for that in policy matter, but when I read that and it refers to Yamhill County Commissioners,
That was a project that somebody did as a.
But why do we update that manual at all then?
Well, it's one of those things that's given as a, kind of as information to the new commissioners.
Kind of like the Grow Yamhill County here, I was thinking it was.
No.
It's more of a guidebook, as you were, to familiarize a new commissioner who doesn't have experience
You were
with
part of
county
that,
government,
Right.
to give them the boundaries of the job.
Right, so it says we
Right,
do
that's
goal,
right.
it says we should
Right,
do
and
goal
it's
It's
setting.
not adopted
Never-
by the
nothing ever
board.
happened.
Oh, I realize that, but
Yeah.
it says,
It's a group of individuals and
well,
their
see,
concept.
and that, maybe I took it from face value, I saw there's a concept,
no.
something we should do. And all of a
Sure.
sudden it's in the book, but it's like Grow Yamhill Valley, we never implemented it, it was there.
Well, this is different in that, for instance, Brian Van Bergen and former Commissioner Stern did this as a project, but when they compiled all that information, it was used to inform, but it was never like a policy manual. So maybe our apologies for not making it clear that that's what that was. Is here, read this, will help you figure out who to call if you need something, or the basic.
Now, those parts I agree with you should be in there, but when the part that talks about goal setting, probably shouldn't be in there, because what good does it do to think that, and you're betting, excuse the horse, on the fact that, gee, we should be doing goal setting and we're not.
Yeah, that was just something that two individuals worked on as a project.
And I'll say that's part of
Their
the
ideas.
that's part of the onboarding process, and I hope another commissioner never has to go through what I went
Well,
through,
it's
so.
one of those things where if you read something and go, hey, do we do this? Or, I mean, I still have questions, and I think you always will. But if goal setting is something that you want to, irrespective of where you found that information, want to bring to the board.
And that's what I was doing. I assumed that, yeah, I still want to do it, but I assumed since the book, even though it wasn't a
No.
policy manual says we
It's
do
not a
it, that
policy
we
manual,
did it.
yeah, well, we don't.
Okay.
But we do in, I think, our own ways, and I think the point being that is each department sets their own goals, they have retreats, they have strategic planning, they do that, we do that at the beginning of each year, the chair asks for the goals of each commissioner. So our goals are not the same. You've got goals, I've got goals. And that pretty much centers around our own liaison duties. So when we say, these are my goals, like you said, and I said, then in 6 months, the last time I was chair, I'd want to come back and say, okay, where are we with our goals? And that's what we do as a board. But we don't have a unified goal as a board, nor do we have a unified goal as a county, because we can't, because we're all working on different projects.
Well, we are, but I will disagree with the fact that I think we have to know where we're going.
But where do
And
you mean, where are we supposed to be?
as far as like space, what our space requirements are gonna be in 10 years. If we would have known, that process would have been started even before both of you were on it. That would have been started 8 or 10 years ago. We wouldn't be talking about renting buildings here, buying buildings there.
Why not?
You know, it's renting, because it might have been determined that we may need some, but we're gonna actually put money in the bank to actually put together a complex based on our space
To
needs.
build a big county building?
That may be more efficient to staff, because it's not just the cost of the building. It's getting all the staff into one location. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to do it, but we don't save money for doing that because we don't know what we're gonna need.
Well, we have been following the direction that has been set.
Oh,
by
I
the
agree.
board.
No, I agree with that, Laura. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
disagree
I'm
with
not,
that.
if that were the current direction of the board or past boards, we would be going in that direction.
Mhm.
But the board many years ago set the direction to do what we're doing.
And no one ever came along subsequent to that, like the last board, the board before
I
that.
know
And
2 boards
changed
ago
that.
never said, hey, we need to be looking at this. So this is something that you're bringing to everyone's attention, and this is something that we certainly can discuss.
And that would, what would be part of, because that's a part of the goal setting.
So then
is to
we'll
set
put that down.
strategic plans.
So let's do this.
Okay.
This is something that you now want to bring to the board for the greater discussion.
Mhm.
So we can put that down and schedule it as a work session to talk about that and see if
That-
there seems
that's
to
all
be
I
an
have.
appetite
You got
to
it.
do that. So
If there's
that's
an
one.
appetite, because I say it
And if
takes
there is.
2 to be an appetite for it.
And
yeah.
if there isn't an appetite, then we move on to a next one.
Yep.
So the next one would be the where do we go from here, said core, and that might even be a chat update. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Would that be a work
That
session
would
with
be work
Chad?
session with Chad, and that's what I was asking.
Okay,
work
so then
session
we
with
can
Chad.
schedule
And I
that.
expect you, Stan, to take a lead role in that, because if you're working with Chad,
Yeah.
I'm not saying you shouldn't work with Chad, because economic development is your thing. But what I'm saying is it would have been, I would have appreciated knowing.
Sure.
That's so.
And I think we all are guilty of that, as I said. It's just sometimes we don't do the due diligence of making other people aware of what we're doing.
No, I-
So strategic doing, can that be part of the economic development update?
Sure,
or is that
I think that's
separate?
why I would have put Stan's name on it.
And it's, and I can give you a quick brief.
Well, let's save that.
Okay.
Let's save it
That's
for the
not what
work
we're gonna
session.
do here. So then we'll schedule a work session for goals and objectives. One for said core and strategic doing, that's one.
Mhm.
And then the Yamhill County tourism thing, because I gotta tell you what, I had no idea that thing had that there were any legs associated with it and it was going anywhere. So I would like to know as well.
I got that letter, like everybody else did, that Yamhill.
Valley died.
Yeah,
Traffic.
Curry Yamhill Valley had disbanded.
And I thought it was decomposing and we didn't have a body. We have a body apparently, and it's got some life in it and we
It's
didn't
even
know
worse
about
than
it.
that.
The cadaver is here.
But it's got, a pulse, apparently.
Well, and I've got people who are really interested in
Then
making
you
it
need to
happen.
know that.
Well, it doesn't have a real pulse, it just
But
like
it
that
has a
13th
pulse.
Street house, it just,
You're doing money about polling and things. I didn't know about
I'm
that.
not spending any county money.
No, but you're doing, something's going on.
As a
there.
commissioner.
Well, no, I
We need
don't,
to
that's
know.
fine, it's not.
Let's just share
No.
this stuff, that's all I'm saying.
All right.
So now we've got
It's
1,
shared.
2,
Sure.
3, we've got 3, we're gonna schedule 3 work session topics, and sooner rather than later. So we've already got, we're up to now April 24th, where are we?
And I'll tell you, I know because the staff is so busy budgeting, and everything. I mean, I'm not saying that these 3 or 4 should be done this week, next week, week after. Because I know there's other, as we all know, if we look at the ones we've already had this year, that there are certain ones that come up that we
Well,
have
and
to
we've got an
have.
important thing going on that needs to get done, and that's hiring the replacement for this person.
And that may be a couple work sessions as we go along the process on
And
that
that's-
too.
And that is taking energy and time.
So let's do this if we can, and if this is agreeable. What is the most,
You know, I think I put in here from March through June.
right, so let's do some
I'm
triage.
done 2 weeks in March. I'm
You're
gone the first
legislative.
week at legislative in DC, and then I'm in DC for workforce development workshop
So that's
the last
March.
week.
Oh, they
First
could, they
week.
could do it 2 weeks in a row, huh?
So we've got, which is the most important and time critical for us to do? Is that SEDCOR? Because.
I'd say if you've already been working with Chad, I'd say SEDCOR would be.
So
number
what's the
one.
next time we can do SEDCOR? The next work session we have available? I don't know what this is. Are these,
Those are the ones off our website that Laura staff makes up.
so March 6th, is that,
I won't be here.
you won't be here, March
So go to the next week, March would be the 13th.
13th? Are you gone?
No, I'm here.
The 13th, is that a, so can we do SEDCOR on the 13th? Is that acceptable, Laura?
I believe so,
Everybody, SEDCOR? So we do SEDCOR on the 13th.
unless, if you want Chad there, unless he has a conflict.
So
Well,
we'll see.
I'll do that on Thursday. I'll make that
Okay.
arrangement with him.
Okay,
And he won't have a conflict.
that's,
Because
Well,
yeah.
work.
You don't know what his schedule is.
So then we'll consider that the SEDCOR and strategic do it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Well, Yeah.
And then we'll go to, I would think that this is tourism.
Mhm.
Can we do that next? Can we do that
I'd
on
do that one, the next one.
the next one?
Because I'm all for, to tell you the truth, I'm all for somebody raising money to put it on the ballot, but I don't think it should be us as a governmental body.
Oh, I
It ought to
agree.
be them.
Well, and
I know.
that's why
Well,
I
let's talk
haven't
about
come
that
to
when
his-
it's
We'll talk
time.
about that one.
Let's save that.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a robust discussion.
Oh, yes.
So let's save it.
What's that, two
Because I
for
think
that one?
today's robust enough, don't you think? So let's go to the 20th
I'll be out of town.
and, okay. So now
And
we're
you're
up to
on the
March
last week,
27th.
too.
Yeah,
Are
I
you
leave
gone?
on the 22nd.
Okay, so now we're up to April 10. Can we do tourism on the 10th?
April 10th?
Is that acceptable? To talk about
Yep.
tourism? Now, what if we did goals and objectives on the 17th and added some extra time to that?
To
Will that
talk
work?
about it,
An
yeah.
extra hour? An extra
Well, I
1
think if
o'clock?
we're just gonna talk about whether we're gonna do it or not, I think our hour is
So a regular.
1 o'clock, 1 to 2 maybe to talk about. I think, because this one with the tourism, I think would be good for a 1 to 2, because I think that is gonna also be a robust
Okay.
discussion.
So are you good with March 20, oh, you're not here March 27th, are
It
you?
would be the first week in April.
April 17th, can we talk about goals and objectives?
It's good for me.
Does that work for everybody? Goals and objectives on the 17th?
I'll be here. Put it on the
Okay,
agenda.
so then we get to take each one of these and really spend some time on it. Does that
That's
work?
fine.
Okay. So, all right. So I think that,
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
thank you for your suggestions. So, all right, we've got that. No executive session. Commissioner updates.
Met with Chad last night. Had a robust discussion about.
Why didn't you say that earlier to save me all the
Really?
grief?
Tell us all about it.
It was really good. They're
Did he buy dinner?
No, the governor did.
Okay, so.
Taxpayers'
So
money.
anyway,
No.
All good?
That's all good. But as I indicated, I wanted to find out from them where they were with hiring the person that's gonna do this. And when he told me that they were closing the recruitment this Friday, I said, I wanna be involved in your selection, the interviewing process at some point, because I wanna have an idea of who's gonna be working with Danville County. And so then, but we had already.
So he can get AJ back then.
You know,
no,
AJ's
yeah.
very happy where he is.
He likes the
Aw.
house.
Yeah, and it's, well,
He's a good fit.
he doesn't wanna worry about a grant running out.
Having a job.
Having a job.
Okay, anything else, because we are running up against the clock.
Okay, well, I won't take anybody's.
Do you have anything else that we need to know?
Well,
Go ahead.
the tourism thing, I did meet with.
Yeah, you weren't about to spill until we,
Well,
spill the
hey, there
beans
was
until
nothing
we.
to spill, but now that the cat's out of the bag, we are working very hard to try and come up with some funding to do a poll using Nelson Reports. We've got a bid from them, and if in fact we can come up with the money, we're gonna have them do a poll to find out if there is an appetite. In the meantime, we're gonna be talking to Atticus and to Allison Inn, because they'd be the two major ones that might oppose it just simply because it has a cost that would make it more difficult for them to attract conferences. It increases the cost of their rooms if we add a 1.5% or 2% transit lodging tax to what they already charge. So, I mean,
Let's talk about that. That's something we should. all
yeah,
talk
so these
about.
are things that, anyway, that's where that is.
Okay.
I better not tell you what else I'm doing.
I know.
Because
We have to put that on the
I want to
list.
go back to Mickey Mouse.
What a tar and feather make.
That's the list.
No.
Commissioner Olson.
The only thing I'm gonna, since we're almost done, the only big thing I want to talk about is due to the great work that Commissioner Privicic has done in this Innovate Amity, or Innovate Dayton, Innovate Willamina. I've been getting very much involved in some of the rural initiatives for broadband, and these aren't for the small cities within the county. These are within the areas outside of the outside in the rural areas, because there is no way to provide for a lot of the people, a lot of farmers, the businesses in the rural area, that they can't get broadband. Some of them can't even get good DSL.
I can't.
Yeah, I know it can't get. So this is an initiative through National Association of Counties, through something called E-rate, which is the FCC's program using the Universal Access Charge and Connect Americans Now. That is incentives and everything to actually get providers, such as Online Northwest. It uses the television white space that isn't being used, which television white space can go like this, but radio white space has to be at the point. It allows them to, like, as an example, Online Mac can put a point of presence at someplace in their network, in, let's say, Dayton, and they can reach out up to 5 miles using television white space and providing up to gigabit Ethernet to rural farms. Because the problem is these kids in the schools, and I'm sure Commissioner Privicic can talk to this, the kids in the schools are great because they get gigabit Ethernet, they can learn from professors and instructors, but they go home and they can't do their homework because they have no way of getting broadband.
And the white space, that initiative is all on good, but the National Association of
Broadcasters, they're not gonna
are
allow.
fighting that tooth and nail, so.
Even though they're not using it,
They're not using
they're
it,
not
they
gonna
just
give
don't
it up.
want anybody else using it, and it gives them a hand, but, no, I've been following the activities on that also.
Yeah, it's-
So if you're
that's-
gonna be, and you're gonna be.
I will be out all day tomorrow.
Okay.
And
And you're here-
back procedure tomorrow,
Okay,
and the
good luck
doctor,
to
unless
you.
he, I will be here Thursday unless he tells me I can't be here
Okay.
Thursdays.
All right. And we have the city-county dinner, local government dinner in Amity, and if I can get your information.
Yeah, I'll be there, but I'll give you information to talk about.
Okay.
Yes, I will.
And Cynthia will be attending.
And you got my info, I got your thing.
Transit.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Just, I will, in the interest of brevity, keep my updates until
Yeah,
next
better
week
be.
since
And-
there's.
And then we have
Sheridan.
Sheridan on
Saturday
Saturday.
night.
Right.
Saturday night.
Yes.
So thank you all
No,
for
thank
your,
you.
Tomorrow.
Oh,
your birthday's tomorrow?
no, she's only imagining things.
Your birthday's tomorrow?
Of course, I'm so sweet.
Oh, your birthday's on
Sweet like a
Valentine's Day.
chocolate,
Well,
sweet
happy
like a
birthday.
chocolate.
Happy
That's why,
birthday.
why do you think I've had my procedure done? I never go to work on my birthday.
Even if you have to have surgery to do it.
Yeah, surgery
Anyway,
to
have a
do it.
happy birthday, good luck with your procedure, thank you all, and
Thank
we'll
you.
see you
Now you can
back
go to your
here
meeting.
Thursday, thank you.